Hello, you're very welcome to this hopefully short video on radiation safety in the Department of Science. My name is Gabriel Gallagher. I'm a physicist in the department, and I am also the Radiation Protection Officer for the college. I'm just going to share my screen and share a presentation with you now. Okay, so there's me, Dr. Gabriel Gallagher. And so radiation safety is an important issue. For many of you, this will not be relevant, but on the outside chance that you work near some sources of ionizing radiation, or that you are thinking of purchasing some equipment that will involve radiation safety issues, hopefully you find this useful. Okay, so what are we talking about? We're going to talk about what radiation is, and particularly what ionizing radiation is. Look at background radiation, the regulatory environment, the legislation and the Environmental Protection Agency, and the sources that we have in the department. So why is this important? Well, ionizing radiation can be dangerous. Inappropriate use can damage your health, and it can be fatal. So the emphasis whenever anyone is trained in using this equipment, these sources, is to adhere to procedures with no shortcuts. Okay, and to discuss any issues you may have with me or another representative of the Radiation Safety Committee, which I'll talk to you about later. So what is radiation? Very long general definition there. Anything propagated as rays, waves, or stream of particles, but especially light and other electromagnetic waves, sound waves, and the emissions from radioactive sources. Okay, and if any of you have read The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, it's mostly harmless. As an example, there's a particularly attractive young physicist seen through infrared. I can honestly say he's wearing very cool glasses there, as you can see. And we are all sources of infrared. Infrared's harmless, okay? It's when we get to the higher energy radiations and also things like alpha and beta particles that we run into trouble. So ionizing radiation is the serious stuff. That's what we're concerned about in this talk. X-rays, gamma rays, alpha and beta radioactive decay products. So very simply, non-ionizing radiation is low energy radiation. Visible light, infrared, radio waves, they don't really pose any health risks. Ionizing radiation is high energy radiation. And because it's high energy radiation, it possesses enough energy to ionize an atom. That produces, you end up with positive ion or positive molecule, charged molecule, and a free electron. Okay, so this changes the biology chemistry, and apologies to all the biologists and chemists looking at this, but I'm not an expert in that area. But what I do appreciate is ionizing radiation can have undesirable consequences. Okay, we do have radiation all around us. Okay, the average background radiation dose for people in Ireland is around under 4 millisieverts per year. A sievert is a really large unit. It's maybe an unfortunately large unit. 1 sievert can be fatal, or enough to cause very severe consequences for someone. So 3.4 millisieverts is, the milli is what brings it down to a level that is, we can live with. There are numerous background radiation sources. The main one is radon. So radon constitutes over half of the radiation dose anyone will receive in a year. Ireland is particularly poor with radon contamination or radiation problems in the home. And I would encourage anyone that's concerned about radon to actually have their home measured by the EPA to check what the radon level is. You can also get radiation from cosmic rays and food and drink. Bananas are a great source of potassium, and part of the potassium is potassium-40, which is radioactive. A lesser amount of our background radiation comes from artificial sources, and the majority of that is from medical. Okay, there is a small amount of radiation from work-related exposures. So the average radiation dose for people working with sources of radiation in industry is about 20 microsieverts per year. So we've gone from millisieverts as the overall dose per year down to microsieverts, a factor of 1,000 reduction. Okay. And to put that in context, if you take a transatlantic air travel, the dose can vary from between 3 and 10 microsieverts per hour. Okay, you're higher up in the atmosphere, you're closer to those cosmic rays, so they're stronger up there, more prevalent, so you get a more significant dose. Okay, so there's a struggle with a regulatory framework in place to protect sort of workers in companies and organizations in Ireland. The relevant legislation is SI 30 of 2019, and you can look that up if you're interested. SI stands for statutory instrument. Under that legislation, it enshrines two individuals with particular responsibility. There's the RPO, the Radiation Protection Officer, which is me in the context of SETU Waterford. And my job is to ensure that, maybe to draw up the guidelines and to ensure that guidelines are followed locally. The other individual with responsibility is the RPA. He is the Radiation Protection Advisor. He's external to the organization, and he is a medical physics expert who provides advice to the college on anything relating to exposure incidents. Within the college, we have a radiation safety committee who basically comprise myself, the RPA, the health and safety officer, and representatives of each area that has sources of ionizing radiation. And all of this is in place to make sure that both users of the equipment and students, staff who work in the vicinity of these sources to keep everybody safe. Okay, within the Department of Science, we have radioisotopes, which are stored, they're part of the physics department and stored in a lead-lined cupboard on the W corridor. And we have X-ray diffraction apparatus as part of the PMBRC, newly installed in the last, into 2021 in W18. Access to or use of either of the above requires training delivered by me, and all the relevant safety documentation has to be read and a register maintained that this has been complied with. I should say that the training delivered is much more in depth than what I'm delivering here today. This is just a sort of general notice to people about what's going on in the department. All sources of ionizing radiation are regularly monitored to ensure that any exposures are ALARA, as low as reasonably achievable. And really with the apparatus we have, any exposures that I measure are barely detectable above background. So they're of no real concern. Okay, so my advice to you, you may be thinking, oh, well, yeah, I was considering buying a new piece of equipment that involves maybe ionizing radiation. Particularly X-rays is a popular one. Now, for that to come into the college, it has to be approved by the Radiation Safety Committee, by the RPA, and by the EPA. So my advice, if you are considering purchasing something like this, is don't, because it involves an awful lot of paperwork for me. I'm being facetious here. Of course, just if you are considering it, just get in contact with me early on in the process, and we can get prior approval from the EPA, and it just makes everything run much more smoothly. Okay, it cannot be done without the approval of the EPA and within the college, the Radiation Safety Committee. So engage with us as early on in the process as you can. And that's really all I want to say. If you have any extra questions, give me a call, drop me a line by email, or just stop me in the corridor and we can have a chat about it. So thanks for your attention. And as I say, if you have any other questions, please get in touch.